Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you. Chainsaw Man, Buddy Stories. Chapter 2. 9 Years Saver. 1 inch into the future is darkness. It was an old proverb. Because darkness sounded sinister. People often used it to suggest a foul fate lurking ahead, but originally it meant that the future was unknown, whether good or bad. No one could say. But in this line of work, Kishibe thought the negative interpretation was the more accurate one. Being a public safety devil hunter meant living with the constant possibility of death sudden and without warning. It didn't matter if you were a rookie with a future or a hardened veteran, at any moment you could drop out of the world of the living like stumbling into a hole. It could happen to anyone. Kishibe had spent his years on the front lines of devil extermination, dodging such plunges into the abyss. Was his longevity a blessing from God, a run of good fortune? Or did it mean he was so lost even the Grim Reaper had forsaken him? Kishibe chuckled bleakly to himself. There was no God, and no Reaper either. All Kishibe could count on were his ever-present companions booze, tobacco, and devils. And his poker-faced partner. The notes of a jazz piano drifted languorously through a haze of ambient lighting. He was at a bar on the top floor of a high-class hotel. The lights of the city below seemed impossibly distant. Before him was a dark sky broken by the cold silhouettes of high-rises. Kishibe gazed out at the darkness that seemed so close. His reflection showed a clean-shaven face. A jagged scar from an old wound. Hair worn long and unadorned. How long we've been together, Quanchi? Almost 9 years already? The woman beside him sipped her wine. 9 years. Is it really? She was beautiful, after a fashion, but her face was unsettlingly impassive, and she spoke without emotion. A patch covered her right eye. Kishibe raised his own glass. How about it? Ready to go out with me yet? A flash of motion. Never. Now, don't hit me. We're indoors, remember? Quanchi gave him a long stare before lowering her fist. Kishibe had been working on her since the day they'd met, but the answer was always never, no way, not in this lifetime. Get over yourself, and her rejections were usually accompanied by a flurry of punches. Still not giving up after all these years, she said. It's almost impressive. Just goes to show the depths of my feelings for hey, pay attention. Quanchi's gaze had wandered after one of the waitresses. When Quanchi continued to ignore him, he shrugged and tossed back the rest of his drink. Only then did Quanchi turn back. The stink of booze on you is worse than usual. How much did you put away before I got here? Not a lot. Oh, really? I know a rookie was killed in the line of duty yesterday. Whenever one of your newbies bites it, you always order an extra round or 4. Kishibe's only response was to order another whiskey on the rocks. He studied the amber liquid in the glass, his expression vacant. 12-year-old Macallan. Whiskey takes time to mature, you know. It's gotta sit in the barrel until it's good and ready. Do you have a point? At public safety, most folks get 1 year. I've had hunters I thought had it in them, others I thought didn't, but within a year they all died or fled back to the civilian sector. That's why I don't call myself a teacher. Far as I'm concerned, I'm just training dogs. But even dogs, you get attached to them. Quanchi said nothing. 5 hunters were killed last month. 1 month alone. So I went to the brass and said, don't give me people, don't even give me dogs. Just give me toys that won't break. Toys that won't break, eh? Yeah. I get fond of a kid, they turn up dead, next thing you know I'm ordering that extra round. I'm better off when I'm working with material I can't get attached to. Kishibe let out a sigh of hot breath and brought the whiskey to his lips again. They told me there's nobody who can't break. No guarantees. They're right. So they ain't giving me any rookies for a while. Quan Chi had a response for that. Sounds like a fair compromise. You drink too much anyway. What, you're worried about me? I'm worried about having to bail you out the next time you go on a bender. Quan Chi looked into her glass of wine, still mostly full. The reflection of her own face, blood-red and quavering, looked back. Come to think of it, I'm supposed to be getting a rookie of my own. You? Yeah. Someone asked for me by name. Said they absolutely had to have me as their instructor. Kishibe scoffed. That's funny. Is it a guy, by any chance? No, a woman. Pretty cute, judging from her file photo. Well, don't you sound thrilled? Do I? Quan Chi gave him a look of modest confusion. Kishibe dug into his pocket and pulled out a room key. You might be interested to know I made reservations at this hotel. What do you say we check out the neighborhood watering holes? I'll be your drinking partner for one round, Kishibe. Dragging you out from under bar stools is above my pay grade. Quan Chi drained her glass in a single long swig, put a bill on the counter, and stood up. They'd faced death together more than once, but she never dropped her curtness. The corner of Kishibe's mouth crooked up. Take a partner, age for 9 years. He turned the glass contemplatively in his hand, listening to the clink of the shifting ice. 2 days later, Kishibe and Quan Chi were side by side again, this time meeting the new devil hunter. Good morning, the rookie chirped. I'm Minami Nakano, and I'm so thrilled to be working with you. She was a small, baby-faced girl in a dark pixie haircut. Her irrepressible energy and big round eyes gave the impression of a puppy in human form. Miss Quan Chi, it's such an honor to have you teaching me. She grabbed Quan Chi's hand and shook vigorously. Quan Chi gazed dispassionately at the shaken hand. Kishibe gave a casual wave. Hey there, Nakano. I'm Kishibe, Quan Chi's partner. It's been much too long, Mr. Kishibe, the new recruit bubbled. Have we met somewhere? Oh. Here, not personally. I saw you at the new hires welcome party. At a distance. I remember you because when you introduced yourself, you said, I like booze, women, and killing devils, and I thought that was so funny. It just stuck with me. Oh. Kishibe said. Well, sorry to disappoint. You were disappointed, right? Meeting me? I know you were saying all that to break the ice. That's real leadership. Faced with the young woman's indefatigable positivity, Kishibe could only scratch his cheek awkwardly. He jerked a thumb at Quan Chi. Why'd you want this gal as your teacher? There are full-fledged members of public safety who are scared to get anywhere near her. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous, but I'm not scared. Maybe reverent is the right word? Miss Quan Chi is so strong and so beautiful. Reverence. Of course, Kishibe stole a glance at Quan Chi. After a long pause, Quan Chi spoke. Minami Nakano, you said? She seemed to want to be sure she had the name right. Yes, ma'am. You can call me Minami. All right, Minami, Quan Chi continued. Which devils are you contracted with? None yet. I thought I ought to get in some training first so I know what I'm in for. Not a bad idea, Quan Chi nodded curtly. Hunters who try to skate by on devil powers rather than their own merits rarely last long. We should start by honing your basic martial arts skills. Yes, ma'am. Quan Chi followed up with more questions. You're confident in your stamina? Your physical strength? Not, really. But I'm full of can-do attitude. Quan Chi nodded and gestured for Minami to follow her. All right, let's see what you're capable of. Come down to the training room. I'm right behind you, Miss Quan Chi. The two headed for the public safety training room, Kishibe sidling along behind them. Quan Chi allowed Minami to rush ahead, then shot Kishibe a glare. I don't recall including you in that invitation. Just happened to have a little free time on my hands. Then go smoke or drink or crash at some woman's place, like you always do. So cold. You know you're the only woman for me. He was cut off by Quan Chi's fist, which he narrowly dodged. He could hear the whistle of the air as it went by his ear. It would have killed a man with slower reflexes, but after 9 years Kishibe had learned to be quick on his feet. He got to a safe distance and held up his hands. Orders from the top. I was told to keep an eye on my partner. Mad Dog Kishibe, meekly following orders? Don't make me laugh, Quan Chi said with a straight face. I'll handle the training on my own. Suit yourself. Like I told you, I don't want to train any more dogs for a while, Kishibe said. It's not the girl the brass wants eyes on, though. It's you. Quan Chi had trained a few rookies in the past. Thanks to the brutality of her training, every last one had put in for early retirement. Fine, said Quan Chi, but she didn't sound happy. Do as you please. She turned her back on Kishibe and didn't look at him again. In the training room, Quan Chi instructed Minami to start doing laps around the expansive area. She was fast enough. She would have to have passed her initial evaluation into the department. For a public safety devil hunter, however, basic fitness wouldn't be enough. After about a dozen laps, Minami's breath was coming hard and fast. Time to stop, Quan Chi said. I can keep going. Minami huffed. Quan Chi crossed her arms. Don't push yourself for minute 1. It'll have an adverse effect on the rest of your training. Understood, ma'am. Minami came to a stop and caught her breath. Beside Quan Chi, Kishibe pulled on a cigarette. That's a change, Heart. What do you mean? Remember that guy who came through here 6 years back? He threw up 8 times and you still kept him running. Quan Chi responded, he needed the extra push. You pushed him all the way into an ambulance. His quip earned no leniency. Oh, who can trust the memories of an old drunk? Which means you know I'm right, Kishibe pointed out. Instead of replying, Quan Chi stripped off her shirt to reveal a black tank top. Now we spar. Come at me. Use any moves you like. Yes, ma'am. Minami looked nervous, but she assumed a fighting stance. Then she cried, "Yeah," and charged. Quan Chi dodged without the slightest effort and sent Minami tumbling across the floor. Yikes. Oh. Again. Yes, ma'am. Minami jumped to her feet and confronted Quan Chi a second time. Then a third, then a fourth. No matter how many rounds they went, she was always on the ground in the blink of an eye. At last, Minami sat on the floor, breathing hard. Why, you're amazing. I can't get near you. Let's take a short rest, Quan Chi said. Make sure you hydrate. Yes, ma'am. Minami darted out of the training room. Quan Chi watched her go, her face unreadable. Kishibe picked up the shirt Quan Chi had pulled off. Okay, what's going on? What are you talking about? You know as well as I do, Kishibe said, that sparring match hardly rose to the level of a playground game. Where's the woman who'd come out on top if the whole world showed up for a fistfight? I wouldn't go at a rookie with my full strength. What's the point in tearing her to pieces on her first day? Quan Chi sighed. Kishibe kept at it. The way I remember it, a few years back you vaporized a rookie's ribs with your first punch. Funny, I don't recall. My memory's not what it used to be since I started going out drinking with you. Gee, sorry. Minami bounced back into the room. Sorry to keep you waiting. Thanks for your patience. Quan Chi rubbed her shoulders. It's the first day. I'm breaking her in. Don't worry, I don't need you to remind me to turn the difficulty up. You gonna try some tight holds next? Kishibe asked. Why do you ask? Oh, just a feeling. Quan Chi refuted the claim. What good would pins and locks do against a devil? You're an idiot. Sure, I'll cop to that. Anyway, fine. No pins, Kishibe shrugged, and Quan Chi resumed the sparring match. There was no doubt in Kishibe's mind this was nothing like her behavior with the men she trained. Far from pushing Minami over the edge, she seemed almost tender toward her. The girl certainly could make a person feel protective. Kishibe had a strong suspicion that Minami was just Quan Chi's type. Better keep an eye on things for now. He half-watched the two women spar. The training room echoed with Minami's sweet, girlish cries. He took a long drag on his cigarette. Minami completed training in 2 weeks. On her last night, the three went out for a drink together. Kishibe sat beside Quan Chi, who fixed him. With a chilly look, the polar opposite of that. Thank God the workday's over, smiles on the faces of most of the bar's patrons. Do you have to tag along? She hissed. Minami is my student. You're a third wheel. I'm your partner. Can't partners get a drink together? Kishibe scrutinized the menu on the wall before ordering a draft beer. The cold fizz and rich hops cleared his throat while the noise of the bar and the clatter of the kitchen soothed his ears. The reek of tobacco, baked into the walls, flowed through his nasal passages, and his skin was warm from the body heat of the crowd. Working in a trade where death was his one constant companion, Kishibe relied on dives like this to remind him he was still alive. Oops, sorry. Minami flushed. I invited Mr. Kishibe. It still seems presumptuous of me to go drinking one-on-one with you, Master Quan Chi. Quan Chi didn't say a word, only let out the faintest of sighs. So how long have you two been partners? Minami asked. You know, I've lost track, Quan Chi said. 9 years, said Kishibe. Wouldn't kill you to remember it. Minami popped a tomato slice into her mouth. 9 years. That's a long time. Yeah, especially in public safety. Kishibe raised his glass and filled his belly with beer. Why do you think you've lasted together for so long? Minami asked. Quan Chi shrugged. It's just that Kishibe refuses to die. Sheesh, you sound like you want me to bite the dust. Kishibe ordered another beer. They'd been busting each other's chops for so long it had become second nature. Minami grinned a little awkwardly. Then she seemed to have a thought. Will we do it soon? She asked, her open face clouding with trepidation. Do what? Quan Chi asked coolly. Exterminate a devil. Oh, that. It won't be long before you're called up, I'm sure. Kishibe snatched up 2 slices of red snapper sashimi and popped them into his mouth at once. Standard operating procedure was for a rookie to be accompanied by their training officer on their first devil extermination job. Things had been unusually quiet for the last couple of weeks, but that only meant something was about to give. To tell the truth, I'm not sure I can fight a devil, Minami confessed. I can't even handle Miss Quan Chi yet. If a newbie could go toe-to-toe with Quan Chi after 2 weeks, the rest of us would be out of a job, Kishibe said. Minami was bashful. Well, okay, but in fact, you're the only one who's survived 2 weeks with her, Kishibe added. You mean that? Minami asked, her voice full of sunshine again. It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't exactly truthful either. Quan Chi's training methods with Minami were as different from the tack she'd taken with previous rookies as heaven was from hell. No need to explain that to the kid, he told himself. Word of advice, though. When you're a devil hunter, fretting about whether you can hold your own isn't in the job description. You're there to do one thing: kill the devil. Okay. If you're really worried, get out while you still can, Kishibe added, offering more unsolicited advice. There's other ways to make a living, you know. I'm not going to quit, Minami exclaimed, squeezing her chopsticks tightly. Heads turned at nearby tables, and she shrank back apologetically. Sorry. She hung her head in embarrassment, but only for a second. Then she snapped back into her usual chipper self. So, do you have any tips? For keeping your cool against the devil. Quan Chi took a sip of water. Hit it as hard as you can. Minami soberly repeated this sage advice. Hit it as hard as I can. Kishibe barked out a laugh. Some advice. That works for her because she hits like a pile driver. Don't take it to heart, kid. Then do you have advice, Mr. Kishibe? Minami turned her bright gaze toward him. Kishibe stroked his chin. Loosen the screws in your head. Minami didn't understand. The screws in my head? Yeah. The saner you are, the more terrifying a devil's attack seems, and terror gives a devil strength. So get a few screws loose. Forget about sanity. Even devils fear what they can't understand. You want me to go crazy? Hey, go crazy? Hey, inquiring minds want to know. Why'd you sign up with public safety anyway, kid? Kishibe held out a skewer of grilled chicken like a microphone. Well, Minami took the skewer, hesitated for a moment, then said, I was attacked by a devil while I was a school kid. A devil hunter saved me. From then on, I wanted to be just like them. Infatuation, Kishibe summarized. One of the 3 most common motivations. What are the other 2? Minami asked. A sense of duty and a burning hatred of devils. And in case you're curious, the next most typical is people with an IR Plum benefits package. Minami hesitated. Is infatuation a bad reason? Not necessarily, responded Kishibe. But it's a sane one. Minami didn't say anything, but her cheeks puffed out in a childish sulk. Kishibe might have hit a little too close to home. She whipped the skewer around like a sword, drawing shapes in the air. How do I loosen the screws, then? This is what helps me, Kishibe said, gesturing at his beer. Quan Chi sighed. Ignore Kishibe. He loves to play the grizzled old guru, but drowning his cares in alcohol has fried his brain. Loose? His screws fell out years ago. Kishibe grinned. See, you get me. Quan Chi sipped her water. Just don't overthink things, Minami. The world being what it is, stupid people live much happier lives. Be simple-minded. Kishibe nodded. You heard the woman. Be crazy and be stupid. Don't act like your advice is equal to mine, you drunk, Quan Chi quipped. Once again Minami was quiet. She munched on the chicken as she listened to the 2 snipe at each other. Then, without warning, she sprang up and drained Kishibe's beer in a single long chug. Whoa, hey, he shouted, but before he could stop her the drink was down her throat, glug glug glug. She slammed the empty mug on the table. Mr. Kishibe, I'm not much of a drinker, but maybe that will help loosen my... That was as far as Minami got before she crumpled to the ground. Neon signs slipped by in the night. Kishibe watched them speed past the taxi window. From the back seat, Quan Chi said irritably, Kishibe, can you guess what I'm thinking right now? Minami, her head resting on Quan Chi's knees, snored. Kishibe didn't take his eyes off the window. Nope. No idea. We've been friends this long and you don't know? What do you take me for? Kishibe looked back. Of course I know. You're finally coming around to the idea of going out with me. Quan Chi wasn't having it. If I didn't have Minami on my lap, I'd reach up there, pull your head off, and throw it out the window. The scary part is that you're not joking. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm in a taxi taking Minami home, so what the hell are you doing here? Her voice was soft and even but edged with danger. Kishibe leaned back in his seat. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. It's partly my fault that Minami got herself blackout drunk. You were screwing around with my pupil, Quanchi accused. What was all that talk about sanity? Are you trying to convince her she's not cut out for this work? As things stand, I'd say she has 6 months, tops, before she buys the farm, Kishibe reasoned. And you know it. Quanchi went silent. Granted, the huge swig had caught him by surprise, but otherwise Minami was as straight and narrow as they came. She wasn't physically capable enough to survive on strength alone, and Kishibe doubted whether she had the guts to make a contract with a powerful devil. She was a textbook example of the kind of recruit destined for a short career in public safety. For some reason, every year there was a crop of rookies just like her. Quanchi ran a hand through Minami's hair as the girl snoozed peacefully on her knees. I'm not going to let her die. Kishibe mustered full approval. Well, that's encouraging. What if she isn't posted under you? You're awfully chatty tonight, Quanchi pointed out, not as if it were a good thing. I thought you were getting out of dog training for a while. I thought I was too. But I hate to see a partner's pet pooch go down. Again Quanchi was quiet. Your turn, Quanchi. What am I thinking right now? Don't know. Don't want to know. You've been my partner this long and that's all you have to say? You're gonna make me cry, here. Quanchi scoffed. You ran out of tears years ago. The ghost of a smile crossed Kishibe's face. The longer you were a devil hunter with public safety, the more bodies piled up around you. The pros who trained you bit the dust. Your peers bought it. The kids who came after you disappeared into the meat grinder. The dogs you raised kept dying dogs' deaths. And all the while, you gave away little pieces of your humanity in contracts with your devils. Until all that was left was, what? Kishibe wondered sometimes. Those were the nights he armed himself with enough liquor to take a bath and drink until he didn't wonder about anything anymore. Maybe his philosophy of life wasn't so different from Quanchi's. Crazy or ignorant, what was the difference? Kishibe took a flask out of his pocket to wet his throat. What I'm thinking is, how do you know where Minami lives? It was Quanchi, rather than the plastered Minami, who had given the driver the address. I told you I'd read her file. Memorize her info, huh? What are you implying? Nothing in particular. It seemed Quanchi was even more smitten with Minami than Kishibe had realized. The taxi purred along for another 20 tense, silent minutes before stopping at a low-rise apartment building. Quanchi hefted Minami onto her back and hauled her to her room. The door fell open with a rusty shriek. It was unlocked, said Kishibe. What a trusting girl. Only criminals have criminal thoughts, Quanchi replied. Like you. She flipped on the lights. Kishibe found himself in a one-bedroom studio. The decor was limited to a table holding a potted cactus and a photo of Minami with what looked like her family. Without a word, Kishibe turned the photo face down. Nothing good came of knowing too much about your dogs. Quanchi laid Minami on the bed and turned to him. I can look after her. It's time for you to go home. And I personally would love to, but your partner isn't sure that's the right call. What's that supposed to mean? Ever heard of a wolf in sheep's clothing? Or maybe a wolf in wolf's clothing? What are you implying? Kishibe coughed. Even if Quanchi was interested in Minami, she wouldn't go so low as to jump a rookie. But that was exactly what he couldn't assume. To survive as a devil hunter with public safety as long as Quanchi had, you had to sever all ties to common sense and ordinary decency. Kishibe knew the same was true of himself. He was just trying to decide how to broach the issue when Minami groaned. NGH, ah. Where? Her eyes fluttered open. After a moment of confusion, she recognized her surroundings. She looked mortified. "I'm so sorry. I must have caused you so much trouble." Quanchi sat on the bed and spoke softly. "Don't worry about it. It's Kishibe's fault. You should take a shower, rinse off." "Thanks. I'll do that." Minami swayed as she got to her feet. "You're not steady." "Let me help you," Quanchi said. "You can just stop right there," said Kishibe, catching Quanchi's arm before she could follow Minami into the bathroom. Quanchi narrowed her eyes at him. "Why'd you stop me?" "Just a hunch. I know why I wouldn't want you helping Minami into the shower, but what's the problem with me doing it?" Quanchi asked. Kishibe shrugged. "Might not be one. Then again, there might be. Before we take this one step further, let go of my arm." Quanchi was just shaking free of him when Kishibe's phone rang. He listened for a second, then replied simply, "Right," before pocketing the phone again. "Got a devil on the loose. We're up." The site was an old factory in a desolate stretch of town. It looked like it had been abandoned for years. Half of the building had collapsed, leaving a few battered slate walls shining with mildew in the moonlight. A fetid wind rustled through the weeds, choking the area. What kind of devil do you think it is?" Minami asked. She gulped. The lack of focus in her large eyes wasn't from alcohol anymore, but a potent combination of nerves and fear. Initial report came from some kids who went in there on a dare, but they said it was too dark to see much, said Kishibe, scanning the area. They claimed they heard a voice that couldn't be human. "Well, this is an opportunity to show you I can do." Minami's voice quavered as she squeezed the hilt of the sword at her hip. Quanchi clapped her gently on the shoulder. "Loosen up. Tonight, you can hang back." Minami protested. "But..." Kishibe pulled the flask of whiskey from his pocket and held it out to her. "Don't get ahead of yourself. Want a little liquid courage?" "And no thank you," she replied hesitantly. "Don't joke around, Kishibe," Quanchi admonished. "You'll kill her with alcohol poisoning before the devil shows up." "Just trying to lighten the mood." He shrugged and took a swig. "Okay, Minami. What's the most important thing for a rookie on her first devil hunt?" Minami gave her best answer. Make sure to take the devil down?" "Nah. Don't die." Minami was speechless. "It's easy to panic the first time you see a devil," Kishibe went on. "You freeze with fear. Tense up. Forget every move you learned in training. But as long as you don't die, there'll be a next time." "A next time?" Minami repeated. In other words, there was a chance there wouldn't be a next time. She nodded solemnly as that simple fact finally sank in. They climbed through a doorway slanted at a wild angle and arrived in an open space that must have once been the factory floor. Only fragments of a roof remained overhead, letting the moonlight in to shine on the exposed steel girders of the walls. And something else, something human-shaped. All three hunters gasped. Abandoned mannequins littered the floor like fish after the catch of a lifetime. The piles of lifeless bodies extended as far as they could see. Some had no arms, others no legs. Some were headless. All were covered in grime and dust, unsettlingly close to human, uttering voiceless screams in the moonlight. "A mannequin factory?" Minami said. This is where the devil decided to make its home?" She took a trembling step forward and glanced around. Almost imperceptibly, a shadow quivered at her feet. One of the mannequins was reaching out to grab the rookie devil hunter's ankle. By the time Kishibe opened his mouth to warn her, Quanchi was already shouting, "Minami, beneath you!" Minami yelped as the plastic fingers brushed her toes. She tore her sword from its scabbard and drove it downward. The weapon plunged into the mannequin's shoulder and cracked its chest in two. The sound of the blade scraping the floor echoed wildly in the otherwise silent space. The mannequin crumpled like a marionette with its strings cut. Minami turned to Kishibe and Quan Chi and leapt joyfully into the air. I did it. I really did it. The mannequin flopped over on its back. Kishibe saw with horror that it didn't look like a mannequin anymore. The cracked plastic had become smooth skin, the blank face now had damp eyes that blinked at him, and there was close-cropped dark hair on the formerly bald head. Aside from its severed arm, the mannequin was the spitting image of Minami Nakano. Eek! Minami yelped. She stumbled back and landed flat on her behind. In a sudden burst of power, the Minami mannequin was flung violently away and shattered to pieces. Quan Chi stood with her fists clenched, cool and unmoved. Are you all right? Yeah, thanks. Minami allowed Quan Chi to pull her to her feet. She wobbled slightly. Does this mean we beat it? Asterisk. That's how you defeat a devil, Minami, Quan Chi answered. Minami wasn't certain of the explanation. How? By pounding it relentlessly, Quan Chi helpfully clarified. Yes, ma'am. You moved so fast, I don't think she saw your punch, Quan Chi, said Kishibe, glancing at the graceful arc of his partner's back before turning his attention to the fragments of the mannequin. So it was the mannequin devil, or maybe the transformation devil. The mannequin had only changed shape after Minami attacked it. Based on the scan information he had so far, it seemed this devil could take the form of anyone who touched it. Kishibe stood silently for a moment, then dropped into a defensive stance. What's the matter, Mr. Kishibe? Minami asked. He scanned their surroundings before answering. Call it instinct. If it really went down after one punch from Quan Chi, great. But what if that wasn't all? You think there's more of them? The novice asked. Dunno. If you hunt devils, though, one thing should be second nature. It never hurts to assume a worst-case scenario. Not when a single mistake can mean game over. There are no mulligans in this line of work. Minami went quiet too. What if this wasn't over? Kishibe's instincts, honed by years of experience as a devil hunter, picked up an inhuman malevolence filling the space like tobacco smoke. At least, he thought they did. Quan Chi crossed her arms over her head and cracked her shoulder joints. You'll only lose more hair worrying like this. I'm not losing my hair. Not all of us can get by on brute strength, you know. Gotta exercise this booze-soaked brain once in a while. Kishibe thought through the possibilities. The devil was able to possess and control the mannequins. By the time Quan Chi had smashed its host, it could have fled to one of countless others. It could also make a mannequin look like a person who touched it. Kishibe had heard rumors of an assassin who turned humans into puppets. This devil was the opposite, making puppets into humans. Big deal, Kishibe mumbled. If all it did was copy someone's appearance, he could handle it. There were worse scenarios. Such as, his thoughts were interrupted by an icy chill running down his spine. One of the largest piles of mannequins stirred. The blank-faced figures jumped to their feet and parted to reveal a dark shape charging forward. H&GH. Closing. Impact. Shock. Kishibe raised his arms over his head just in time, deflecting the attacker's fist. The blow was fast, strong, and heavy. Through his crossed arms, he made out the shifting face of his foe. An eye patch appeared over its right eye. The worst possible scenario, then. Quan Chi had touched the mannequin when she destroyed it, and the devil could turn into anyone who touched it. What Kishibe had feared was that the doppelganger could steal not just the appearance, but the abilities of its model. And this one looked exactly like his partner. Kishibe felt his bones creaking as the Quan Chi mannequin fought with him, driving him back into a tangle of reinforced steel along the wall. Mr. Kishibe! Minami cried. She turned to her instructor, panicked. Quanchi slowly uncrossed her arms. Her body tensed. But all she said was, for once that old worrywart was right. "Is Mr. Kishibe going to be okay?" asked Minami. She took a step toward the forest of steel bars. No sooner had she moved than Kishibe emerged from the darkness, unsteady but still on his feet. "Phew. It surprised me, but I managed to take it. Thank goodness." Minami breathed a sigh of relief and jogged up to him. Quanchi's shout came a half-beat too late. "Wait, Minami! Don't go near that thing." "What?" Then two things happened at once. Kishibe drove a knife into Minami's gut, and Quanchi rushed up and punched him in the face. The devil could transform a mannequin into the likeness of anyone who had touched it, and Quanchi knew Kishibe had touched her look-alike. Minami saw the thing with Kishibe's face turn back into a mannequin and shatter. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. She could feel her consciousness ebbing away. "Yow!" the real Kishibe grunted. He held a hand to his hip as he pulled himself up by the wall. A headless mannequin lay nearby. Lucky for him, his foe hadn't been able to copy Quanchi's abilities perfectly. That would be impossible, he thought with grim humor. It had literally been a pale imitation. Even an imperfect copy of Quanchi's power was tough to tangle with, but Kishibe had found enough of an opening to tear off the Quanchi thing's head. So it wasn't the worst-case scenario, he thought. But it wasn't good. The devil was sure to have fled to another body in its nearly inexhaustible supply of backups. He emerged from the tangle of steel and saw at once that something was wrong. Quanchi was kneeling in the middle of the factory floor, clutching an unconscious Minami. Kishibe hurried up to them. "She breathing?" "Yes, but..." I was lax. Blood glistened on Minami's abdomen. Not enough to be immediately fatal. Quanchi must have stopped the attacker before it could stab any deeper. It looked like Minami had passed out from the shock more than the injury. But Kishibe sensed this was cold comfort to his partner. The factory echoed with maniacal laughter, bouncing from one direction then another. "Ah ha ha! Ah ha ha! Ah ha ha! We got her! We got her!" The girl was so trusting. Simple to deceive. The devil was jumping from mannequin to mannequin, mocking them. The taunts came from every direction until they swirled into a hideous miasma of noise. "Humans fear us. They say it's our blank faces. Such fun. But we want to change. We can change. So we shall. Let's change into the people who touch us. Take their faces. Take their thoughts." Kishibe's brow furrowed. "You can read people's minds? The one-eyed woman. The unshaven man. Strong. Something wrong in their heads. Hard to tell what they're thinking. But the other one, the young woman. Weak. Earnest. Easy to read." One of the mannequins pointed at Minami where she lay in Quanchi's arms, then turned slowly to point at Kishibe. "She's in love with the unshaven man." "I'm sorry, what?" Kishibe burst out. The mannequins ignored him and chattered on. "She was attacked by a devil once. The unshaven man saved her. Love at first sight. She wanted to see him again. Couldn't sleep. Decided to join public safety. Worked very hard. Got in. She wanted to be assigned to him. But what a shame. He's not taking on students. Decided to ask for the one-eyed woman instead. Partners. They are partners. She will see much of her savior, the unshaven man. She lets her guard down before him. She will be easy to deceive. She was easy to deceive. Loyal. Earnest. Easy to read. Easy to kill." Kishibe found himself struck dumb. Minami had joined public safety because she'd been saved by him? He had no idea. He'd fought too many devils to remember every person he had rescued. It would have been a challenge even if he hadn't spent the years killing his memories with alcohol. But Minami had said it when they met, hadn't she? That it had been much too long. The revelation stopped Kishibe in his tracks, if only for a brief moment. Quan Chi had feelings for Minami, but Minami had feelings for him. And he'd spent all his time with him trying to get in Quan Chi's pants. A perfect love triangle. No. A perfect failure to communicate. Kishibe locked eyes with Quan Chi. Something impossible to describe passed between them. Well, he said. You gotta laugh, huh? Quan Chi gently set Minami on the ruined floor. Minami groaned and her eyes fluttered open. She was coming around. Just as well she'd missed hearing her deepest secrets laid bare. Around them, the chattering grew angry. We failed to kill her. Better fix that. Time to end this. Yes, let's end it. The one-eyed woman. Her body is strange. Hard to use. Let's use the unshaven man, then. Let's do that. All of us together. All of us at once. You sickos, Kishibe grunted. All the mannequins, heaped across the factory floor, began to tremble. There were so many. How many could the devil possess at once? The shivering dummies began to sprout black hair and stubble. In moments, each of them was Kishibe's spitting image. They even bore the scar in his mouth. In unison, they began to stagger to their feet. Kishibe discovered he didn't enjoy seeing hundreds and hundreds of himself shambling toward him. Die. You must die. All of you die, die, die. Even the mannequins' voices sounded like his as their chant rose to a roar. The noise jerked Minami to full consciousness. She screamed at the sight of her own blood and the mob of Kishibe things closing in on them. Die, 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 die. Countless Kishibes intoned the word like a curse as they advanced on the devil hunters. The aura of malice, of murder, was audible. It sounded like insects hissing. This is a nightmare, Quan Chi said, affectless as ever. One of you is bad enough. Give me a break, said Kishibe. Quan Chi sank to a crouch and put a hand on the hilt of her sword. A chuckle arose from the mob. She would fight? It's futile. One-eyed woman strong. Still doomed. There are so many of us. There are too many of us. Just if, you could defeat all of us. Would you dare? What if you kill the wrong one? The real one? Good question, Kishibe thought. The factory was crawling with his doppelgangers. If Quan Chi started indiscriminately attacking every Kishibe in the place, it would be all too easy for him to join the pile of bodies. She wouldn't take that risk. No, that was a deeply mistaken assumption, Kishibe knew. Of course she would. In the time he'd spared on the thought, she'd already drawn her sword and vanished from his side. A dark shadow slashed across the factory, not even sound giving it away. The only sign of Quan Chi's movements was a series of dark footprints, barely noticeable, across the floors and walls. Sound followed only after, amid the tempest of wind that slammed into everyone and everything in the vicinity. The contest was settled with the first move. Dozens of heads flew into the air, each one bearing Kishibe's face. The decapitated mannequins stood dumbly, as if not even realizing they'd been beheaded, before crumpling belatedly to the ground. The only ones left standing were Quan Chi and the real Kishibe. Kishibe heaved a sigh and wiped the sweat from his brow. But, how? The voice came from a louse-like creature pinched between Quan Chi's finger and thumb. On closer inspection, it looked like a tiny, battered doll lashed together from black feathers. The devil's true form. How, you find me? I didn't look. I simply killed everything else, Quan Chi stated. Cannot believe, said the devil. You better, Kishibe said. That's how my partner rolls. He stretched, bones cracking, then looked at the knife in his hand. A jagged crack ran through the blade. It had held just long enough to deflect her attack. He'd known Quan Chi would try to kill him. 9 years had taught him so. From the moment her switch flipped, there was nothing he could do but try to protect himself. If that was enough to kill you, you wouldn't have lasted 9 years with me, said Quan Chi, the detachment in her voice softening for a moment. She crushed the devil between her fingers. Its death rattle was no louder than a mosquito's. The bow concluded with a long, empty silence. Can you stand, Minami? Quan Chi asked. Minami was still crouched on the floor, not making a sound. Quan Chi reached down to help her up, but her fingers grasped empty air. She let her hand fall back to her side. Kishibe, get Minami to a hospital. Sure thing. And buy her a new lock for her door. Wasn't me who broke the first one. Kishibe helped Minami to her feet and leaned her against his shoulder. Minami started to stammer an apology. It's just a little blood loss. It won't kill you. Gotta get you to an ER, though. Kishibe spotted the slim silhouette of his partner making a silent exit. Hey, Quan Chi. What is it? She asked. You knew which one was the real me, didn't you? Kishibe said. Quan Chi didn't answer right away. Kishibe waited. He knew she'd meant to kill every Kishibe in the room, but he couldn't shake the sense that she'd gone just a tiny bit easy on him. He'd been ready to lose an arm, but he'd walked away with only a cracked knife. Finally, she spared him a contemptuous glance. When that devil comes back from hell, tell it that if it wants to pass itself off as you, it needs to get that stink of alcohol on its breath. Then, step by weary step, Quan Chi slowly disappeared into the darkness outside. So, she knew? Minami said. Yeah, Kishibe nodded. And she still nearly murdered me. She was the craziest partner a guy could have, by a long shot. Maybe she had to let out her frustration after learning that her pet student was more attached to Kishibe. Made sense to him. I'll never live up to her. Minami sounded pain from more than just her injuries. Hardly anyone can, kid. She's a stone-cold killer. That's not what I'm talking about. Her hand wasn't on her wounded abdomen, but her chest. I was fooled by one mannequin that looked like you. But Quan Chi, she picked the real you out of hundreds. This time it was Kishibe's turn to be silent. Minami's admission of this small defeat drifted away into the moonlight, and then it was gone. Minami quit public safety, Quan Chi said quietly. It was 3 days later, and they were back at the swanky hotel bar. Kishibe gazed at the night spread before them outside the window. Smart choice. She would have been dead in a hurry. And I don't need any more reasons to drink. Quan Chi fondled the stem of her wine glass before speaking. Minami was interested in you. Weren't you tempted to pursue that? Now I've already got you in my heart. Whoa. No hitting. Kishibe saw the punch coming. Quan Chi reluctantly lowered her fist. Can't believe you're still deploying those stale lines after all these years. Neither can I. Why me? Quan Chi wanted to know. Love at first sight. That's why, Kishibe stated simply. For once, Quan Chi didn't have an answer. Kishibe let his eyes drift down to his whiskey glass. And because you won't die on me so easily. His partner turned her one eye toward him. He swirled the glass of 12-year Macallan, the sweet aroma of whiskey aged in cherrywood drifting to his nostrils. You spend enough time with someone, you start to feel close to them, he said. It's a human thing. People in our line of work, though, they can just evaporate. Poof, they're gone. You had one partner beside you yesterday, today it's someone else. And each time, I drink a little more. So sue me for being reluctant to get close to new people. Quan Chi remained silent. You don't die, Quan Chi. You don't change. I feel like it's safe to be close to you. There was a beat before Quan Chi finally answered. That's the stupidest reason I've ever heard. At least we're stupid together. The alcohol was really hitting him tonight. He leaned on the counter and fixed his partner with his most passionate gaze. I love you. It was the first time he had actually said the words to her. 9 years together, 9 years seasoned with blood and misery, and he was still trying to pick this girl up. Well, why not try? For now, they were still alive. I realized something recently, Quan Chi began hesitantly. After a moment's silence she continued, her expression as impassive as ever. I think I might like women. Kishibe couldn't help but smile even as he sighed. He let the glittering amber liquid slide down his throat. Yeah. I know. Even now, even after facing death together all those times, their bond wasn't too rich, it wasn't too deep. But it wasn't too sweet either. After 9 years, it had the same dry flavor. There was some comfort in that. End of chapter 2. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.